Hi, Scott Sattler, Managing Director of Complete Corporate Services. The following educational presentation covers modules surrounding topics demonstrating how lawyers can use investigators to assist in areas of law such as commercial, family, criminal, and personal injury. I hope you find the use of investigators by the legal industry helpful.
Module 8, Commercial Litigation. The scope of the area of commercial litigation is very wide and impossible to cover in this educational module adequately. However, the following are instances where legal practitioners representing clients involved in prosecuting or defending allegations may use investigators in the area of commercial litigation: general breaches of contract, restraint of trade, non-competition agreements, breach of confidentiality, intellectual property theft and breach of copyright, piracy and counterfeiting, fraud and misappropriation by employees, partners or directors, defamation, competitor intelligence gathering, cyber attacks, risk management, false, misleading and deceptive conduct, and industrial disputes. The use of the correct investigation methodology is essential. Posing as clients, investigators are often used to purchase pirated or counterfeited products, identifying offenders. Where previous vendors or employees are suspected of being in breach of their restraint of trade or non-competition obligations via surveillance, covert engagement and witness interviews, evidence is obtained of such restraint or breach. Let's consider a case study. In a matter, the marketing manager of a building company resigned to enter a new industry. The company IT section identified that the former manager had downloaded the company client database. During an interview with investigators, secretarial staff disclosed that the person had been overheard on telephone calls making arrangements to set up a competing business. This was despite the fact that the individual had signed an agreement not to compete for a certain period of time. Using a front as a new business financer, investigators procured a finance application from the former manager relating to his new business. During this application, he was legally recorded in Queensland, representing that intellectual property and a client base, which was owned by our client, was his property, and that he was doing business with clients of his former business. This evidence formed the basis of an injunction, which protection of the business clientele and unlawful use of IP was achieved. The evidence and action prevented substantial loss. In another operation, a business partner was believed to be making a high net worth vessel sale outside of the business, in contrary to his obligations to the business partnership. In listing a vessel for purchase with the target provided a contract and authority from another business and not the business partnership. His activity was legally recorded in Queensland in sale listing negotiations. This and other evidence was used to ground a successful application for an Anton Pillar order. Investigators were used in the execution of the order at the target's home, where records relating to over $1.5 million in commission were identified. This amount of commission was for sales that were not put through the business partnership. Successful proceedings and an injunction later followed. In another matter, a plaintiff company became the subject of substantial security for costs order. The plaintiff's director filed a sworn affidavit to the effect that he was too ill to continue to take part in litigation and required a lengthy adjournment, which was granted. Investigators were covertly used to do substantial negotiation with the director regarding the sale of various assets, and he was recorded as being clearly able to do business and transact, contrary to the sworn filed application. Estate litigation. With an ageing population, the incidence of various mental illnesses by elderly persons has exacerbated the instance of claims made on estates. Furthermore, in a society of growing dysfunction and alternatives to the one marriage, husband and wife union has saw the need for more claims. Investigators are often instructed by practitioners to investigate and identify evidence of capacity and/or the status of claimants. This may involve obtaining the services of an investigator to perform surveillance or gather intel. In a case, a high-profile male in de facto relationship was gunned down and killed outside of his business. He had an adult daughter. The administration of the estate appeared to be straightforward, except 9 other females made applications on the basis of de facto relationship status. Investigators were used to gather evidence of the de facto status in each instance. One of the de facto partners was eventually charged and successfully prosecuted with the deceased homicide. Although most claimants were proven to be of girlfriend status only, investigators clearly proved that 2 of the claimants enjoyed de facto status in nature and law. In another case, investigators were engaged by lawyers to gather evidence from a New Guinean family who looked after the deceased for a period of 12 years prior to his death in New Guinea, and he had died intestate. The deceased owned a substantial property which was occupied by the granddaughter of a person whom the deceased granted an oral lease to occupy the property on the basis that rates and electricity were paid some years prior to his death. The matter was contested. Investigators were able to provide sworn affidavits and other evidence to the effect that the deceased had bequeathed his property to the New Guineans and was at the time of his death holding it in trust for them. They were successfully granted the deceased's estate in full.
Thanks for participating in the presentation. We hope you found it valuable. If you require further information or assistance, please don't hesitate to contact Complete Corporate Services via email, operations@completecorp.com.au, or call us 1300 911 334.